And welcome to another episode of KRAD COVID Readings. I'm Keith R.A. DeCandido, reading my writing to help you deal with the coronavirus craziness. Back in 2017, Titan Books published Aliens Bug Hunt. This was very specifically meant to tie into the second Alien movie, Aliens, and the Colonial Marines, whom we saw therein. Remember the line about how, is this another bug hunt? So, yeah. The remit from editor Jonathan Mayberry to us authors was to write stories specifically related to the Colonial Marines in some way or other. There's some great stories in here, including one by Scott Sigler, which is actually from the point of view of the xenomorph. The whole story, the whole collection's worth buying for that, to be perfectly honest. But it's got some really good stuff in it. Dan Abnett, Rachel Kane, Larry Correa, David Farland, Matt Forbeck, Ray Garton, Christopher Golden, Heather Graham, Brian Keene, Paul Kupperberg, Tim Levin, editor Jonathan Mayberry also wrote a story, James A. Moore, Yvonne Navarro, Weston Oxy, the aforementioned Scott Sigler, and Mike Resnick and Marina J. Lostetter all wrote stories in this here book. And me. My story is called Deep Background. It was actually kind of a handy thing for me to write because it led to me later writing the novel Alien Isolation, which came out in 2019. This proved a nice little breeding ground, as it were, audition or something. Anyway, where the hell is it? There it is! Okay, here is my story set in the Alien universe, one I am particularly fond of, called Deep Background. Ms. Hasegawa will see you now, Ms. Kejela. Nickole Kejela had been fearing those words since she arrived in the tastefully appointed waiting room outside the office of the CEO of the Hasegawa News Service. In the 15 years she'd been working for HNS, 10 of them as a field reporter, Nickole had never been called into a meeting in Hiromi Hasegawa's office. Hell, she'd never even met the imposing head of the corporation in person. They'd been in the same room, of course, but it was always a huge function space at an event of some kind. Nickole had only been within a few meters of her once or twice. With a sense of anticipation and dread, Nickole tucked away her notepad. She'd been composing some additional thoughts for the sidebar on her profile of Dr. Shalalabaz Rao, and approached the large metal door that slid aside obligingly for her. The first thing she noticed was that Hiromi Hasegawa was sitting behind a wooden desk. It had very little clutter on it, which surprised Nickole, as most executives either had a ton of stuff or nothing at all on their desks. But Hasegawa's was a bit of a middle ground. Then the woman herself stood up, and Nickole was amazed at how small she was. On her casts, and when she stood behind a podium, she looked like the tallest person in the room, but she barely cleared 1.5 meters. Nickole also noted that the head of HNS had had considerable cosmetic work done, but it was quality stuff. Had she not made an intensive study of the latest body mod techniques for a story, she probably wouldn't have even noticed that she wasn't working with original merchandise, as it were. Hasegawa walked to the other side of her wooden desk and put out a hand. Nickole, it is a pleasure to finally meet you. Thank you, ma'am. Nickole tentatively returned the handshake. Oh, please, do not call me ma'am. If we were out in public, of course, I would insist on it then. But when it is just the two of us, formality is a waste of time, and I do not have any to waste. Refer to me as Hiromi, please. Not even remotely comfortable with being so familiar with the most powerful news mogul extant, Nickole simply said, okay. Have a seat in the guest chair, please, Nickole. Hasegawa sat on the edge of her fancy desk. Nickole did as requested. Thank you. Hasegawa leaned forward with a conspiratorial smile. Please, do not look so apprehensive, Nickole. You have absolutely nothing of which to be afraid. With respect, that flies in the face of every story I've heard about meetings in your office. Waving a hand dismissively, Hasegawa said, those are mere rumors and innuendo. Then her smile became an evil grin. Mind you, I started those rumors and spread that innuendo myself. I dislike meetings a great deal, so I prefer to limit their use to unpleasant tasks, where at all possible, so that they may be ended with dispatch. Worry not, however. This most assuredly is not one of those. I promise you will depart this office with the same position and occupation and salary you had when you entered. which, to be fair, cannot be said for many of the others who have sat in that chair over the last several years. She shifted on her butt, then got up. This artificial wood is supremely uncomfortable. I do wish I could acquire genuine lumber. Nickole barely managed to contain her reaction, but it was a near thing. That earned her a glare from Hasegawa's hooded eyes as she went to sit behind her desk once again. Do you have something you wish to say in response to that, Nickole? On the one hand, Hasegawa's tone indicated she should answer the question, and smartly. On the other, that same tone indicated she wouldn't like Nickole's answer. The first, however, outweighed the second. A few years back, I did a story on the Forestry Act and how heavily regulated the use of luxury plant items is now that there are barely enough plants left on Earth to keep oxygen in the air. I got to see some real wood up close and personal, and I also talked to people who fake wood. Either what you're sitting behind is real wood, or it's a fake that is so detailed that it probably would have cost more to get done than the real thing would have. To Nickole's immense relief, Hasegawa smiled. You are as talented as I'd heard and hoped. Excellent. That is precisely what is needed. Oh, and it actually is artificial wood. And yes, it would have been considerably cheaper to acquire true lumber. But I also do enjoy the process of breathing, so I simply acquire the finest forgery of wood that I could obtain. Nickole nodded. She didn't appreciate her boss testing her, but she was the boss. I was speaking with Helena about you. She informed me that you were working on an expose on Weyland-Yutani. I was, Nickole said slowly, but I couldn't corroborate enough of my sources. And you will not be able to. Hasegawa shook her head. The company is far too skilled at the fine art of ass covering for you to be able to obtain anything incriminating in so direct a manner. No, Nickole, the secret to finding out information that the company does not wish you to discover is to eschew directness and instead approach them sideways, so they do not see you coming. Frowning, Nickole said, Are you saying I should revive the story? The purpose of this meeting is to provide you with your next story assignment. Nickole noticed that she didn't actually answer the question. Hasegawa touched a control on her desk, and the wall behind her, which had been showing a view of the Himalayas, changed to a view of the cast on Rao that she'd been doing notes for. I looked over the draft on your profile on Dr. Rao. It is quite well done. That suffused Nickole with tremendous pride. Hasegawa was not known for uttering praise, certainly not for doing so without meaning it. Thank you. I appreciate how you provide a deep examination into who she is and why she does what it is that she does. She is a person, not merely a subject. In addition, you provide nuance, enough so that intelligent people are able to appreciate it, but presented it in a way that even a complete imbecile can also appreciate it. She sighed. Which is to the good, as the galaxy is quite well stocked with complete imbeciles. She touched another control, and the image went back to the Himalayas. I have been friends with Emilio Cruz, the Chief of Staff of the Colonial Marine Corps, for quite a long time, and he has asked me for a favor. Okay. That was Hasegawa's second change of the subject in the last minute, and Nickole's head was swimming. Emilio wants us to embed a reporter with a unit in order to put a good face on them, to humanize them, in essence. How long? Nickole asked. For a year. Nickole's eyes widened, and her jaw fell open. Excuse me? Holding up her both hands, Hasegawa started, I realize that it sounds like a great deal. More than a great deal! I've got vacations planned. There's my family. I can promise you that this will not interfere with a bit of that. Understand, most Marine units spend approximately 85% of their time on standby, waiting for a mission, while 75% of those missions are simple and harmless. We are not at war right at the moment, so the Marines are far more akin to security guards. They are required to be ruthlessly efficient when they are in action, but the majority of the time, they are sitting on their posteriors. And worry not. As I said, you will still be allowed to take your vacation and see your family. This will hardly be an immersive assignment. Okay, I guess, but what's the angle here? I mean, I'm sure doing a favor for the Marines will be good for the network in the long term, but... Hasegawa smiled. And this time it was the expression of a predator about to chow down on prey. This, Nickole, is your sideways route. I'm sorry? Nickole remained as confused as she had been throughout too much of this conversation. As I said, I have known Emilio for a very long time. It is not a single thing he has said, specifically, but I am fairly certain that the Marines are in the company's pocket. I am fairly certain that they may have conspired to cover up what really happened on Hadley's Hope. Nickole blinked. You think Weyland-Yutani and the Marines are responsible for what happened there? I think it is possible, yes. She leaned forward and stared intently at Nickole. There is, as they say, some shit. I want you to sniff it out, and I believe that spending a year with a Marine unit will enable you to accomplish that. Okay. This was a little better, and it actually brought everything she'd said up until now into focus. Ostensibly, you want a profile of the Marines. Oh, not just ostensibly. I also wish that. Provide the same nuance that you brought to the Rao piece to these Marines. I've already uploaded the specifics to your queue. Get yourself a good night's rest, and then report to Lieutenant Baronato at Camp Obama first thing in the morning. Tell me your name, please, Private, and where you were born. I am called Private Dmitry Sandoval. I was born in Estonia, but was raised in Brooklyn. And you, Private? Same thing, name and where you were born. I'm Private Dmitry Sandoval, and my mommy and papi was born and raised in San Pedro de Macorís, but this pretty face was born in Chicago. How the hell did you both get assigned to the same unit? Step thought it was a computer glitch till we both showed up. We are distinguished by nicknames. I am referred to as Big D, and he is Little D. Which really ain't fair. I ain't little. I'm just shorter than this overgrown gorilla. Transcript of raw footage of interview of Private Dmitry Shostakovich Sandoval and Private Dmitry Carlos Sandoval, Colonial Marines, J Company, conducted by Nickole Kejela. Nicole's first month was spent at Camp Obama, a Marine base near the California-Nevada border. The unit she was following was J Company, led by Lieutenant Emily Baronato. J was assigned to the camp for this month to act as camp security and also to get trained on the latest weapons to come off the line. Camp Obama had, as far as Nickole could determine, absolutely no shade, which was only an issue because everything the Marines did except sleep was outside. After 4 weeks, her dark skin was practically mahogany. She watched the Marines get trained on the new M41A Mark II pulse rifles. Nickole herself had no interest in weaponry of any kind, but she knew that plenty of people viewing her cast would want to know about all the new toys, so she forced herself to learn all about its range, how to load it, how to field strip it, how it differed from the Mark Is, and so on, which would all go in a sidebar. She also watched the Marines perform drills that involved a lot of running over bizarre terrain, shooting things that didn't stay still, and variable lighting. But what was of most interest to her was the Marines' informal training. One day, Sergeant Ayed Stepanyan gave them the afternoon off, and 6 of the Marines decided to play sharpshooter poker. They took 4 beams of wood and attached 13 cards from a shuffled deck to each beam, then set them up on a ridge, one beam on top of the other. The half-dozen Marines then went 2,000 meters away and set up their M42A scope rifles. Each took a shot and had to hit a card. After they each took their turn, they shot again until they each shot 5 times. Whoever took out cards that made up the highest hand won. If you took a shot and missed, you folded. Of course, the Marines took bets on who would win. Most of the money was on the company's sharpshooter, Corporal Hakeem Rashad. A few side bets also went on some of the others, not to mention betting on what the hand would be. By the 4th shot, everyone was out except for Rashad and Private Malik Washington, the newest and quietest member of the company. In fact, he'd arrived the day Nickole did. Corporal Lee Shu was the only one who didn't participate. Instead, he used his binocs to see who shot what and kept track of the hands. Okay, Shu said. Rashad has 2 pair, aces and 3s. Washington's 4 to a jack high straight. One of the Private Dmitry Sandovals, Little D, said, "Where the fuck you learn to shoot like that, newbie?" Washington smiled shyly. Carnival. Always won the teddy bear. Rashad took aim and fired. Shu looked through the binocs. Ace of hearts. Full house for Rashad. Even as Washington took aim for his final shot, Rashad grinned. Why are you bothering me? Ain't no way a straight beats a boat. Washington, though, said nothing. Nickole just smiled. Her cam had a good zoom, and she knew exactly what cards the private had hit. Queen of spades, Shu said after Washington took the shot. So, queen high straight. Nice, but futile. Rashad's the winner with the full house. Cheers and attaboys sounded out as folks congratulated Rashad. Scrip also started exchanging hands. Not exactly, Corporal, Nickole said. Shaking his head, Washington said, It's okay, ma'am. The Corporal said, but Nickole kept talking. Look at the suits of the cards that Private Washington hit. Shu put the binocs back to his eyes, and then his face fell. Son of a bitch. What? Rashad asked, cutting himself off in mid-self-congratulatory cheer. Lowering the binocs, Shu said, The reporter's right. Washington didn't get a queen high straight. He got a queen high straight flush. He chuckled. Guess you get the teddy bear again. Rashad's face fell. Nickole just smiled. Everyone else was either angry or confused. And then Little D, who was in charge of the bet money, said, Y'all ain't gonna believe this. Rashad turned to face Little D. What? Holding up both hands, Little D. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you what it is. And what it is the reporter's the only one who put money down on the newbie. Excellent, Nickole said, stepping forward to claim her winnings from Little D. Shaking his head, Rashad asked, What the hell you bet on his sorry ass for? Because I already knew about the teddy bears. She took the script from Little D. I want to thank you all for this. It'll be a big help on my vacation to Prince Edward Island. Don't worry, though. I'll be back in 2 weeks. What the fuck is in PEI that you want a vacation there? Rashad asked. Well, for starters, a refreshing lack of Marines. Everyone laughed at that one. Big D said, You will be missed, Miss Kejela. He was the only one who called her that. The others either used her first name or, more likely, just called her the reporter. Thank you, Dimitri, she replied. Yeah, thank him, Rashad said. Me, I'll be glad for the privacy. You're the one who left the bathroom door open, Rashad, she said with a sweet smile. I'm off. No, you're not. Turning, Nickole saw Sergeant Stepanian approaching. What do you mean I'm not? She asked. I planned this vacation a year ago, and my boss told me, I don't know what your boss told you, but my boss just told me that we're gearing up and heading to the Nelly, which is taking us to LV 418. Nickole blinked. An actual mission? To another planet? Okay, but my orders, Miss Kejela, are for everyone to saddle up, including you. Look, you can talk to me all you want, but you should focus on the others. I'm pretty much on my way to retirement. I already filled out the paperwork. Really? I wasn't aware of that. There's nothing in your service record about it. Well, I haven't actually sent the paperwork yet, but I will. Probably tomorrow. Don't pay him any attention, ma'am. He's been saying that for 4 years, and we're still stuck with him. Transcript of raw footage of interview of Sergeant Aid Stepanian with Corporal Shu, Colonial Marines, J Company, conducted by Nickole Kejela. Nickole spent the next 24 hours packing and leaving repeated messages of both voice and text with Hasegawa. Those messages garnered one response 5 minutes before she was to report to the shuttle that would take them to the Nelly in orbit. This is why you are there. Take the sideways road. With a sigh, Nickole reported to the shuttle after putting a request for everything that HNS had on LV-418. In particular, she recalled one of her first assignments at HNS 15 years ago was as a researcher on a piece about the procedure for setting up a colony, and she dug up a ton of stuff on that subject. The research would still be in the archives, and she nabbed all of it. She spent the next 6 hours canceling her vacation and failing to get refunds on anything thanks to the short notice. Still allowed to take to my vacation. 85% sitting around. Can't believe I fell for Hasegawa's bullshit. After 10 hours on the Nelly, they were clear of both Earth and the Moon's gravity wells, and the ship was basically a ballistic missile aimed at LV-418. She and J Company and the crew of the Nelly all went into cryosleep. The lid on her chamber seemed to rise only a second after it had closed over her, but of course the entire lengthy interplanetary journey had taken place without the need for the ship to feed or provide atmosphere for her or anyone else. Not to mention the limited entertainment options in interstellar space. Her head swam as she sat up in the cryobed, trying to orient herself and keep the ship from dancing around in several directions at once. You okay? Nickole looked up to see a very blurry version of Private Washington looking down on her. I'm fine, Malik. You don't look fine. Never done cryosleep before? She shook her head, an action she regretted, as it made her head spin more. Farthest out I ever went were the asteroid mines. Yeah, Washington said. It's kind of like a hangover the first time. Oh, it's exactly like a hangover, Nickole said emphatically, but without the happy memories of being drunk. Washington guided her to her feet and led her toward the mess area. Come on, he said. Best thing for a cryo hangover is lots of really terrible food. Nickole chuckled. Sounds yummy. And hey, thanks for sticking up for me in the poker shoot. I didn't want to contradict the corporal. Hey, I was motivated. That was a lot of cash I won. Nickole managed a ragged grin. Listen, there's something I didn't mention to you during the interview that I wanted to talk to you about. Nickole frowned. What's that? You probably get this a lot, but... Well, I've been working on a novel. I was wondering if I could talk to you about writing sometime. At that, Nickole laughed. As long as you don't want me to write a book off your idea and split the profits. Washington looked at her askance. Why would I do that? They joined the others for their post-cryo breakfast. Lieutenant Baronato joined them part-way through. Just talked to the Nelly crew? Situation's worse than we thought. What is the situation? Nickole asked. Everyone stared at her. Sorry, I spent the flight out trying to cancel the vacation I was forbidden from taking, she said bitterly. Rashad laughed. Why you want to go to PEI for when you get to watch Marines in action, poker face? Nickole frowned at her new nickname, but decided she liked it better than the reporter. At least this one had a story behind it. Rashad kept laughing until he noticed Baronato staring at him. Then he shut up. You gotta teach me that stare, Nickole said to the lieutenant with a smile. Baronato did not smile back. And you need to read the briefing materials. Short version, the planet only has one continent. There's a research outpost there. The island has sinkholes. Stuff's falling down into them. The research outpost is bugging out, and they need our help. Relief spread through Nickole. Just a rescue operation. That's great. Stepanian chuckled. Yeah, probably won't even break your fingernails. Or mine, which is good, since I'm retiring after this. Nickole rolled her eyes and continued to eat her tasteless steak and eggs. You ain't never gonna retire, Step, Little D said. I'm pretty sure he hasn't even really filled out the paperwork yet, Shu added. You'll see, Stepanian said enigmatically. This will be my last mission. You watch. What's your proudest moment as a Marine? Oh, that shit's easy. Lunar riots. This one motherfucker was beating on a woman. Put a shot in his head. Motherfucker went down. That's your proudest moment. Damn right. We serving and protected and shit. And that woman got protected by my ass. That's what it's all about. Transcript of raw footage of interview of Corporal Hakeem Rashad, Colonial Marines, J Company, conducted by Nickole Kejela. The research outpost on LV-418 had a room they called the patio, which was fully enclosed. The planet didn't have a breathable atmosphere, and had a huge picture window that looked out over the island. It was filled with weird plants in a variety of colors like orange and yellow, and a lot of purple and black dirt. Much of that dirt kept collapsing into big holes, including one right under where 6 of the scientists were getting samples. J Company was out there in EVA suits, rescuing the half-dozen scientists from the hole. Rashad, Shu, Washington, Big D, and Little D were all out rigging up zip lines and pulling scientists out and over to the ATV, which was the only ground vehicle that was safe to move on the unstable ground. Next to her was the head of the outpost, a short woman named Aparna Pratyuman. Nickole asked her, I have to ask, Dr. Pratyuman, why would you send them out there when there are sinkholes? Simple. I didn't send them. They went out on their own. She shook her head. Morons. The Marines all had their own helmet cams, and Baronato had let Nickole watch the feed from them on her notepad, with their audio in an earbud. She wasn't really paying close attention to them. It was all being recorded, and she could go over it later. And she had the earbud turned down to almost nothing. But Rashad yelling, Holy motherfucking shit! What the fuck is that? at the top of his lungs got her attention. Looking at her notepad, she saw that Rashad was down in the deepest part of the sinkhole, handing off people to Big D, who was halfway up, who then got them to Little D on the surface, and then Washington brought them to the ATV and back to the base. Shu kept an eye on the equipment, made sure that everything would hold together. She zoomed Rashad's cam feed and was stunned to see something else in the sinkholes besides, well, a hole. At first, the sinkholes just looked like a massive divot in the ground, but some of the dirt had fallen away near Rashad, and it exposed a massive chamber that was filled to the brim with large ovals. Rashad was asking, "What the fuck is that?" "Is it me?" Nickole asked, "or do those look like eggs?" Over the earbud, Nickole heard Baronato ask, "Can we bring a sample back?" She replied, "I wouldn't recommend it. If Rashad or anyone else starts barging around down there, the hole will probably just get bigger and we'll start losing people." "All right," Baronato said. "Corporal Rashad, keep taking pictures so we've got something at least." Prethuman was staring over Nickole's shoulder at the notepad display of Rashad's cam. "What the hell is all that?" "No idea," Nickole stared at her. "I take it you haven't seen anything like that before?" Shaking her head, Prethuman said, "I haven't, no, and I should have." "What do you mean?" The chief scientist started to talk and then stopped. "Never mind." She walked away, but Nickole wasn't giving up that easily. Yet. "Honestly, I hate violence. Hate guns, hate killing, hate exercise." "So naturally you joined the Marines." You laugh. "But it was natural. I mean, we're at peace right now, so there's not much combat. And honestly, I'm in it for the gadgets. Seriously, the toys I get to play with here are way better than anything I'd find in the private sector." Transcript of raw footage of interview of Corporal Lee Shu, Colonial Marines, J Company, conducted by Nickole Kejela. Night was a relative term on LV-418, as it was pretty much dark all the time, but they kept a 24-hour schedule anyhow to make things easier on the staff. The Nelly's window to head back to Earth wouldn't open for another 15 hours, so Baronato agreed to let Prethuman's people gather up everything they could and run whatever final tests were possible. They take the dropship back up to Nelly first thing in what passed for morning. Nickole finished up her notes on today's footage. It was the type of thing that most reporters loved, but which didn't interest her in the least. The team being competent. You could find footage of Marines doing their jobs right anywhere. Still, that would make a decent sidebar. She wanted to know more about the people. Her plan was to take another go at Stepanian. The sergeant had deflected her interviews with claims of impending retirement, but it was obvious he'd been saying that for a while. She was startled by the chime ringing on her barracks door. The place was tiny but serviceable. Everyone got their own bunk, which was luxury for the Marines, since the base was built for 50, but only 24 were assigned. "Come in," she said, and the door opened to reveal Prethuman walking unsteadily in. "Miss Kejela, you need to see this." She held out a data disk. "Dr. Prethuman, are you drunk?" "Certainly hope so. I drank enough to get this way." Nickole reached out and took the disc. "Doc, just read that, okay? Planetary survey. Ain't no way they're this She swallowed. "Incompetent." Then her face went blank for a second, and then her brown skin started to go green. "Excuse me." Prethuman ran out the door, and Nickole prayed that she reached the bathroom in time. Curious, she plugged the disk into the adapter in her notepad. It only had one file on it, which contained the planetary survey made by the Weyland Corp on LV-418 about 100 years back, done a good 20 years before they took over the Yutani Corporation. Nickole read it over and didn't find anything odd, except insofar as the sinkholes weren't mentioned. So why show it to me? And then she recalled that she probably had a copy of this already. The survey would have been part of the massive download she did from HNS. So she called it up and started to read it. Oh, fuck. She read it over and then read it a second time. The survey report in the HNS archives was completely different from the one Prethuman had just given her. Among other things, it actually mentioned the possibility of geologic instability, as well as readings indicating underground caverns that had biological readings. None of these items were in the survey that Weyland Yutani had given to Prethuman in preparation for her expedition. They knew about the sinkholes and the possibility of some kind of alien life form, and didn't tell the people they sent. Before Nickole could even begin to figure out what this really meant for her story, what Hasegawa had really sent her on, not bunking with J Company for a year. The lights went out, replaced by red lights. A buzzer sounded, and a pleasant female electronic voice said, "Warning, biological contaminant detected. Quarantine procedures implemented. All personnel must remain inside base until further notice." Grabbing her cam, Nickole ran out of her room, down the corridor, and to the infirmary, since she figured that was where a biological emergency would be dealt with. Sure enough, Predhuman was there, clutching a mug of something hot for dear life, along with Stepanian and the base doctor, a stooped-over man named Choduk Park. There was also someone on one of the beds. Nickole activated her cam and then realized that whoever it was had some sort of thing covering her entire face. It was one of the Marines, and when Nickole noticed the lieutenant's bars on her sleeve, she realized it was Baronato. "What the hell happened?" Stepanian was asking. Park shrugged. "No idea. Looks like a parasite. Trying to get it off." "Try harder, Doc." Now Park looked up at Stepanian. "Everything I try, vital signs go down. I assume you prefer I didn't kill her." "That'd be nice, yeah, Doc." "Then please leave. Let me do my job." Throwing up his hands, Stepanian said, "Fine," and left. Nickole stayed behind and recorded Park's work. He kept trying different ways of getting the thing off, but the alarms went off every time, and often Baronato would convulse. After a while, the doctor gave up trying any treatments, as they only succeeded in causing Baronato more distress. After an even longer while, Nickole stopped recording, as a doctor watching a patient lay still didn't make for great footage, and she went to get a nap and try not to have nightmares about what Predhuman had shown her. The nap lasted longer than 12 hours. Nickole went into the medical bay and saw Predhuman, now much more sober than the last time she'd seen her, and Stepanian arguing over Baronato's body. Park was nowhere to be found. "We have to get out of here. We cannot leave without the lieutenant. Sergeant, if we all leave except for her, she dies. If we stay here, we all die." "The doctor said that she cannot be moved without injury. I refuse to leave her behind. We don't have a choice." While Nickole was considering trying to surreptitiously record this, Park came in, sipping a can of something. "Are you two still shouting at each other?" Predhuman started. I don't care. You're disturbing my patient." "Your patient's in a coma," Predhuman said. "Fine, then you're disturbing me. Now please..." Before Park could continue, the thing just fell off Baronato's face. "That's peculiar." Park went over to check her vitals. Then she started to convulse again. And then her chest seemed to expand. "Please stop trying to talk to me. I understand the General Crew specifically requested you here, but while I am under orders to allow you access to my unit, I have received no orders that force me to talk to you. Go away." Transcript of raw footage of abortive interview of Lieutenant Emily Baronato, Colonial Marines, J Company, conducted by Nickole Kejela. Nickole sat in the patio behind a huge barricade that Rashad and Washington had constructed. She was next to Stepanian, who was covered in horrid burns from the acid blood that spewed by the creatures, whatever they were. They were the only ones left. At first, there had just been the thing that exploded from Baronato's chest, but then more appeared. Nickole had no idea where they'd come from, but they overwhelmed the base within a day. Rashad looked at Washington. "How much you got left?" 3 clips. "And the flamethrower is still in good shape." Then Rashad turned to Nickole. "How's Step?" Nickole shuddered. "He doesn't look good." "Motherfuck, what are those damn things?" "I don't know," Nickole said, "but the company knew about them and kept it from Predhuman and the others." Nickole shuddered. Stepanian and Little D had gathered the expedition team in the mess hall, and they'd wound up trapped there by the creatures. The sergeant was the only one to get out alive, and at that he'd been crispy fried by the acidic blood. The monsters had picked off the rest of the Marines, one by one. Then Nickole said, "Do you know what happened to Shu?" "He's dead like everyone else," Washington muttered. "Did he make it to the communication room? He was supposed to send a message." "The fuck point is there in a message?" Rashad asked. "Ain't nobody gonna hear shit for 2 weeks. By the time they even know we're in trouble, we'll be dead." "Because they have to know," Nickole said. "This is why I was sent on this assignment, don't you get it? The company knew about these things, and they didn't tell Predhuman's people or you guys." Rashad shook his head. "Well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I got no fucking clue. And the comm room's got a big-ass hole in it that Shu and Big D made. Took out 6 of them fuckers with him for all the good it did." Washington was staring down at his motion detector, and he suddenly cried out, "They're coming!" Nickole reached over to Stepanion's holster and removed the pistol. "I'm sorry, Step. Guess it really was your last mission." She got up and stood next to Washington, taking the safety off the pistol. Washington looked down at her. "You know how to use that?" "We'll find out, won't we?" He snorted. "Yeah. Guess I ain't gonna get that novel finished, huh?" "Nope." She aimed the weapon over the barricade. "I just hope Shu was able to get my last story out." "So what's the novel about?" "Well, it's about these two people who meet for the first time on Luna, and then they get separated when their parents get reassigned to Earth, and they both live crazy lives only to find each other again when they're both in their 90s, and they pick up where they left off." "So it's a love story?" "Kind of." Transcript of raw footage of interview of Private Malik Washington, current Colonial Marines, J Company, conducted by Nickole Kejela. Hiromi Hasegawa read over the transmission that had been sent from LV-418 2 weeks ago directly to her queue. The sender code belonged to the Colonial Marines, but the ID was Nickole Kejela's. Based on what she read, Nickole was probably dead, along with the rest of J Company. But not before she uncovered the story of the century. The files appended to the message proved once and for all that Weyland-Yutani had deliberately hidden the existence of xenomorphs on LV-418. Hiromi shook her head. "I knew you were talented, Nickole. Well done." Then she deleted the entire message. She put a call through to General Emilio Cruz on his personal line. Cruz was in the Philippines right now, so it was 4 in the morning, and he'd probably be asleep. Sure enough, in a bleary voice, Cruz asked, "Hiromi, do you know what time it is?" "Yes, Emilio, I am fully cognizant of the time, but I didn't think you'd want to wait to hear that I was right. Weyland-Yutani didn't cover their tracks well enough. One of my reporters almost exposed the xenomorphs on LV-418. Cruz's eyes went impossibly wide, and sweat already was starting to bead on his forehead. "Are you—" "Calm yourself, Emilio. I've already killed the story. The xenomorphs have done the same for my reporter. And J Company, by the way." Waving an arm, Cruz said, "I'm sure they died heroically. It's what they're supposed to do." He blew out a breath. "Good work, Hiromi. I'll let the Weyland-Yutani Board of Directors know. I'm sure they'll compensate you well for this information, as usual." "Good," she smiled. "Sleep well." That's the end of that story. Alien's Bug Hunt is available from all the usual online book dealers in whatever bookstores are currently open. There's an ebook version also, and there's an audio available as well if you like to go that way. So feel free to check that out. You can find me online at DeCandido.net. You can also find my blog at DeCandido.wordpress.com. You can find my writing about pop culture on Tor.com, and there's also my Patreon, which is patreon.com/KRAD. Feel free to check all those things out. They're wonderful. Anyway, thank you very much, and please stay safe.